Hey, we're an expat British couple living in America, just retired. My name's Mike and I retired from aerospace engineering.
Hey, I'm Fiona. I'm a retired teacher.
And we decided to kick off our retirement with a trip down to Florida as a bit of a test case for a camping trip that we've got planned to Alaska.
So originally we were going to purchase a camper van that we were going to tow along. We had the truck, we were going to get the camper van. It was going to be a home away from home situation, kitchen sink, shower, the works. But instead we're going in camping in a tent.
Yes, as you can see, if you can see out the back of our Toyota Tundra truck, there's no camper van behind. We just have a tent under our flip top in our 6.5 foot bed. So we're going to be sleeping mostly under canvas for the next 3 weeks, and a lot longer than that when we're in Alaska in the summer.
Some might call us crazy, and we probably are. We couldn't find very much online for people traveling and camping.
So yeah, we're going to show you how we're going to make it work, or not, but we'll show you what we learn and what we find works and what doesn't work over the coming episodes. Our grand plan is to camp in 3 locations in Florida over the next 3 weeks. But first we've got to get there. From our home in Virginia, we'll head down to Collier Seminole State Park, which is just north of the Everglades at the southern tip of Florida. Then we'll move up to Anastasia State Park near St. Augustine, just south of Jacksonville. And then our plan was to go over to St. Andrews State Park near Panama City. But at the risk of sounding nesh, we cancelled that leg of the trip because Panama City was forecast to get down to the low 20s overnight while we were supposed to be there. The first leg of our trip is from our home in the southeast corner of Virginia down to Savannah, Georgia. This first leg is over 7 hours long and just shy of 500 miles, and I quickly realised I'd be spending a lot of time at these gas stations along the way. This Tundra is a pretty thirsty beast. It's got a 26 gallon tank, but it doesn't have great fuel consumption. Around town I normally get about 13 miles per gallon. I'm hoping to do a lot better than that on these long runs, but I'll keep you informed on how that goes. Anyway, we overnighted at a hotel in Savannah and then continued our trip down to the villages in Florida. This was a shorter driving day than the previous one, and we broke that up with a stop off at Silver Springs State Park, home of the famous glass bottom boats, which we took a tour on. In the winter months, the manatees come up the river and into these springs, and we spotted several through the glass bottom boat and on the surface of the water. We also took a walk around the Silver Springs area and spotted this little blue heron, which was a lifer for me. If you haven't heard about the villages, it's a huge retirement community about an hour north of Orlando, probably the biggest retirement community in the USA. It's kind of infamous for being something of a senior Disneyland with all kinds of social activities and social mingling. Anyway, we have no intention of moving there, but we have friends there and we thought we'd drop in and see them. And we did take in a trolley tour around the new Eastport Village, which is kind of mid-century Miami in style, and we also took in a open-air concert that was going on while we were there. It's a pretty cool spot, but we were eager to get on the road again to go down to our first camping spot at Collier Seminole State Park, which is just near Marco Island, south of Naples in Florida. This was another 4.5 hour drive for us, and we got there to the campground about 2 p.m. to set up camp. So Collier Seminole State Park Campground is just off the exquisitely named Tamiami Trail, which connects Tampa with Miami across the southern swamps of Florida. The campground's also at the corner of County Route 92, which is the road that goes off to Marco Island, just about 15 minutes away. There is a tent-only loop at Collier Seminole, but these sites have no services. We were actually allocated site 32, which had electrical power and water right at the site. It's pretty cramped, but we were just a short walk away from the toilets and shower facilities, which also had laundry and a dump station right there on that loop. So, time to set up the tent. This is a new tent for us. We have set it up once before. We went on a camping trip to North Carolina last summer, and we learned that it's important to peg down the ground sheet before trying to put up the poles. That was a step that we forgot this time around, so we had to go back and put the ground sheet pegs in, as Fiona was doing there, and then we could put in the poles and they would stand up pretty much on their own. You could probably do this erection with one person, but it's a lot easier and less awkward if there's two of you for this particular tent. Anyway, we got the thing up in about 25 minutes. I think the next time at the next state park we took probably 10 minutes less than that. So it's really about a 15-minute job to put the tent up. We had our neighbour socialising with us as we put the tent up, and we then got out our new Exped Mega Mat, our inflatable sleeping pad, which is pretty fantastic. And here we are all set up and with supper on the stove within probably an hour of getting to the campsite. So the camping is all going to plan, except that firstly, Florida, even South Florida where we were, was unusually cold this January of 2026. And secondly, the campsite had a burn ban, so we couldn't even light a fire. And while we found our sleeping pad and sleeping bags were more than adequate in temperatures in the 30s, it's a bit miserable sitting around after dark without a fire. Still, we weren't there for the beaches. Fiona and I are going to do some wildlife spotting over the next couple of days. We started in the Big Cypress National Preserve on the Loop Road, and it was really spectacular. Here's some of the pictures we got. We spent 4 or 5 hours on the Loop Road Scenic Drive in the Big Cypress Preserve, but to cap it off, on the way back, just near our campsite, there was a marsh trail with a little parking lot at the start of the trail, and we went down there at sunset to watch the birds come home to roost. It was absolutely fantastic, one of the best bird watching experiences I've ever had. We got a good night's sleep and then decided to do the Everglades the next day, and we took the trolley from the Shark Valley Visitor Centre. It was pretty cold. We took the first trolley out, but got to see some interesting things, some alligators sunning themselves and some wildlife, much of which we'd seen the previous day. We got a good shot of this wood stork and some young alligators in a nest. But the star of the show was the purple gallinule that we saw walking around near the visitor centre. After 2 days of wonderful wildlife spotting in the Florida swamps, we had a bit of a change of pace. We hopped on the Marco Island to Key West ferry, which was fantastic. Just about 3 hours and we were in Key West, and just happened to get there in time to score some tickets to this Fleetwood Mac tribute band, who were absolutely fantastic. Listen in. Yeah, a great night. The next day we hired a couple of bikes and explored Key West until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when we hopped on the Marco Island ferry and were treated to a beautiful sunset as we sped back to Marco. This isn't speeded up, by the way. We were doing about 35 knots on this catamaran. For our remaining 3 days at Collier Seminole, we stayed pretty close to the campsite, but that didn't mean to say that we didn't see lots of wildlife, including these and this beautiful red-shouldered hawk and others that came right to the campsite or nearby. And we also took a day off from wildlife watching to go to the Marco Island beach. It was about the warmest day of our trip this January, February, and we enjoyed that on the white sandy beach. It was time to pack up the tent and move on. We spent a couple of days in Tampa with friends and then drove up to St. Augustine to Anastasia State Park to camp there. Anastasia State Park is another gem of a Florida state park, and it's got a superb campground in the dunes of the park. It has a long white sandy beach with boardwalk access, and it has a beach camp store and multiple picnic areas. We were allocated site 45 on the Shark Eye Loop, which was perfect, much larger than our previous site, and had a firm sand base with easy access to the showers and toilet facilities, which were both beautifully maintained. Here we are in Anastasia State Park, where we've been camping here for 2 nights, and we've got another 2 to go. This is our setup, and this one's kind of cool because we've got water and there's Fiona. And,
Good morning.
And power, so we can charge our stuff up, but also we can keep our tent warm because it's been absolutely frigid, with a little space heater we have inside the tent that we use just to warm it up before we go to bed, and then when we get up in the morning. You can see we've had breakfast this morning. That's our cooking setup. Took a few snaps. You see our warm weather gear because it's been close to freezing overnight. Oh, we did get a fire last night. That was cool.
Very cool. Actually not cool. It was really nice and warm. Quite toasty.
All right, Fiona, show us the setup at the back of the back of the truck. Actually, I'll start with just showing the fridge setup, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a Bluetti AC180 power pack, which is charged off the truck cigarette lighter, and then this refrigerator, which is working pretty well. It keeps working for about 2 days, I would say, on the Bluetti. So as long as we do a bit of driving or plug in the Bluetti every couple of days, we're good. All right, that's our cooler setup.
Now, one of the problems with when you're camping is your storage of all of your day-to-day items, and it's very infuriating when you have a Rubbermaid tote and you're putting things in, taking things out. So I really wanted some system that was a little bit like a kitchen. So we went to IKEA, we got the Kallax 4-cube arrangement, and now you can buy cupboard doors to install and drawers to install. So this has worked out very well. Here we have just a pantry. It needed a basket in it too, so you can top things up. Here's a drawer for glasses, sieves. Here's another drawer for our cutlery.
This is the best one for me. I could never find knives, forks, scissors, bottle opener. Never find them. Now we just pop down the back of the truck, and I know exactly where to find everything.
Now, I also invested in a new set of pans. One of the hardest things to do is to store things that have got handles, and then the regular camping things, The metal's too thin and it warps and it burns. But this is very good. It came with a bunch of set. You have a handle that clips on and you can cook, and that has worked out very well. Again, plates, lids, and another pantry. So this has worked out great. We can get things easily and put things away easily and find our everyday cooking utensils.
Hey, while we're at it, let's show off the inside of our tent. It's probably in a bit of a mess right now, but we can come in here. We've got this net arrangement on the outside where we keep various stuff in totes, and our shoes. And then we have a Exped mega mat, which has worked out really well for our sleeping arrangements. And yeah, that's worked out great. While we're in St Augustine, we visited the Leitner Museum and Flagler College, and also took a history walking tour of the town. St Augustine is the oldest town in the continental US, so we took in the town's sites and finished at Castillo de San Marcos, the fort that the Spanish built. It was great weather for sightseeing, but it got pretty cold overnight, and in fact we made a fire and Fiona cooked us up some hot chocolate, and we had our space heater heating up our tent for when we turned in. The next day we visited St Augustine Lighthouse, which was really great. Love a lighthouse, and this was actually on a campus of museum buildings, so it covered various subjects including boat building and of course the keeping of the lighthouse itself. But we could also see great views including our campsites and the town itself. We also got the idea, seeing the harbour boat in the harbour, to go on a harbour boat tour the next day. So we kicked off the next day with lunch at the Columbia Spanish restaurant, had a fabulous Cuban sandwich and their 1905 salad, which is delicious and great value. Our best views of the Castillo de San Marcos fort were probably from this boat tour, so I'd recommend that. We also got to see lots of wildlife, including this oyster catcher and this osprey, and we also saw some dolphins swimming in the harbour. And we probably got our best view of the town itself, historic district, with the Leitner and the Flagler College. So that was it for our stay in St Augustine. We had another fire that night at the campsite and got a good night's sleep, and then packed up and went off just down the road to Jacksonville, where we got a comedy club tickets booked for that night, Saturday night. The comedy club was a lot of fun, and then the next day we set off towards Panama City, but the weather forecast there was so bad. 22 degrees overnight was the forecast, so we decided to change our plans, booked an Airbnb and overnighted for a couple of nights in Tallahassee. It gave us a chance to look around the historic Capitol building, check out Frenchtown. As we explored Frenchtown, we stumbled across a legendary dive bar. This is it, Poor Paul's Poorhouse. We went there that night and had a blast before our last night in Tallahassee, and then setting off towards home. There's a chance that the Ocmulgee Mounds National Historic Park will become a national park before too long. So since we're on a mission to see all the national parks and it was on the way, we thought we'd call in to this historic site on the way back home. And it was pretty interesting, and we got the iconic shot in case it does become a national park. So after touring the mounds, we hopped back in the truck and drove on to Florence, where we overnighted in a hotel and then set off the next day and made it home. So how did the truck do? Well, We started the trip with 104,140 miles and ended it with about 107,000 miles. So that's 3,000 miles round trip, and that calculated out at about 17.5 miles per gallon, and that's a mixture of a lot of highway roads but also a lot of local journeys as well. Well, here we are back in Virginia in our condo, having completed the trip, and all went well, but we thought we'd wrap up by just pointing out some things that went well and some things that didn't go so well with the trip.
So we'll start with our sleeping arrangement. The mattress, the X-Bed Mega Max Duo, was fantastic. It stayed inflated, it gave the right support, there was no wibble wobbling around, so that was perfect. What we did do though was, whilst we were in Tampa, I think it was, we went and we bought a pump because it does help with the deflation of the mattress when you're traveling from site to site. Our heavy duty, keep you warm sleeping bags were fantastic. We had some cold weather in Florida, so they turned out to be a very big plus. That was really worked out well. My cupboard that I insisted on having in the back of the truck, perfect. Easy access to everything. So you do have to be very flexible with some of your plans in case of weather or unforeseen circumstances. You never really know what's going to happen, so just be flexible. Be prepared to cancel a campsite and go to an Airbnb.
Yeah, we did that in Tallahassee. And the other thing that I was pretty happy about was the truck. It's got loads of space, comfortable, and it actually got better gas mileage than I feared. Though with the gas prices going up, I'm sure it's going to cost us a pretty penny to drive to Alaska and back.
The Florida state parks are fantastic. They have very good facilities, great bathhouses, great laundry facilities, but there is a shortage of space, so you've got to book it ahead of time, as soon as you possibly can. There were some opportunities for bicycles in Florida, so we've decided to take our bicycles to Alaska. We've installed a rack on the back. Now, when you put your bicycles on the rack, always make sure they are firmly clamped down.
Yeah, we learnt that lesson on a trial trip a couple of weekends ago. So also we learned that the visitor centres can be really helpful, and they were very much so in some of the state parks and national parks that we went to on this Florida trip. Well worth calling in.
Another thing that we're going to take to Alaska is a few games, some playing cards and banana grams, and just little things like that for some entertainment in the evening. Also, it's good you can invite people over from other sites to join in a game for company.
I think we're prepared for taking video and capturing footage while we're on the road on our next trip, but one of the things I learned was that it's always a good idea to put the noise cancellation on the microphones that we have on our clothing here, and also capture more video in real time, I think, of the activities, so that I'm not doing as much voiceover on the movies we make.
Now, with our cooler not needing ice, we did buy some ice, and when it melted in the cooler, it wasn't particularly very good, so we're going to make sure we take an ice bucket or something to capture the water in the bottom of the cooler. And we also purchased some proper camp chairs instead of our beach chairs.
But that about wraps it up. It was a successful trial trip to Florida, and we're ready for our trip to Alaska. We'll post this video, and then you can look forward to the series of videos we're going to make for our Alaska trip.
In case you're wondering, this is not our dog. This is Cowboy. We will not be taking him to Alaska.
Yeah, that's our grand doggy, our daughter's dog. All right, we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.